corporation. All those documents is telling us is, if you go back to the original jurisdiction of the original people, we have no juice to enforce anything at that point. That's what those documents are telling us. The documents don't give us the rights. We was born with the rights. They blood rights to the land. They just agreeing to get the fuck out of our way as we assert our rights, right? So when we tell them that these are the documents that they agreed upon to get out our way and to allow us to go back to our oral traditional government, right? Now that's the matriarchy, where the lawgivers speak the law into the public domain, and we pass it among the people and make sure everybody's informed of whatever change is taking place. They're not giving us anything with those documents. They're getting out our way, and those documents is telling us, if you stand up and do your own shit, we don't got no authority over you. That's all it's really saying in essence. They're not giving us the rights. We already have them, right? But so now they have to give us the opportunity to go back to our tribal traditions. In other words, tribe up, click up with your clan. Your clan is your family, right? And start setting up the structure of the family's house. Who's gonna do what in your family? So once we start doing that, we start moving them off the land.
To piggyback off of that real quick, when you said tribe up, start building again. For those who do know, Section 5, Article 25, that states that, I've got the screenshot too, but it basically lets us know that they gave us our land back. And let me read the key thing. Indigenous peoples have the right to maintain and strengthen their distinctive spiritual, cultural, and material relationship with their lands. I'll stop right there. So to make that point, a long story short, I had this idea. So we know we are born with these rights. They have no rights over us, and we're in the process of building our land back. So say me and a group of family members who are talented in carpentry or woodwork, say we go camping off grid, like super off grid, and we in the wilderness, and we find like a waterfront in the middle of nowhere, and we happen to bring a truck with tools. Even though we know we have rights, some people don't like to think that unless they got paperwork in front of them. So we got the declaration saying that, right? So with this declaration, as an example, me being indigenous to the land, implementing this document, and then just implementing just being indigenous, am I correct with what I'm getting ready to say? Me and family can go in the middle of wilderness and just knock down certain trees just to build log cabins and then set up home right there? Or will we have to go through a certain process to divide the land across the land?
Okay, so it's already been tribes all over the land. We already been here. We just going back to so it's a encyclopedia of 500 indigenous tribes or clans. When you look at it, it tells you where each clan originates from. So it's give you a topographical map of the land, and then that tells you what tribe had this portion of land before the settlers came.
Okay.
Now they changed a lot of the tribal names. A lot of the tribal names, like Cherokee, is not an original tribal name.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because sometime last year my grandmother had told me that we were Cherokee, and then fast forward to sometime this year, I came across one of your lives saying that the Cherokee name wasn't the actual name of that tribe. So could you speak more about that?
So the Cherokee name was a replacement name when they was doing the Trail of Tears and switching us out on the Dawes Road by the paper genocide, changing our status in law. The whole goal was for us to not know that we didn't come on ships, so that they could say, see, I told you we was already here, and they came on ships. And then they will say that they had the original jurisdiction, but they don't. We do, right? So as far as the land layout and how it'll be divided up when we resume power, or retake power from the de facto corporation, that'll be up to us to decide at like a tribal United Nations type meeting with just us. So that it won't be up to this corporate fiction called the United States. It would be up to the collective tribes to establish, like, okay, let's say that we, like, for instance, a lot of the trees was cut down. There's so many trees, like what we call the Great Plains used to be covered with trees. Now it's all flatlands with no trees, right? So let's say that the tribe said, well, we need to start to restore the land by planting trees back down here. In that case, we would ask, please don't build and cut down the trees here while we're trying to restore this section of land. And then you would say, okay, well, we understand that. It makes sense. We'll move up the river or down the river this far so we won't be in the developmental zone of the tree planters that's coming in to plant massive amounts of trees, right? So you would have just as much say as anybody else. And if anybody would object to it, they have to give a competent reason under our tradition, right? Because the land is for us to take care of and live in harmony with. And the interlopers came in and they've been destroying the land and the atmosphere and the water, right? So you would have a say, especially if you got your whole family clan with you, right? Your family clan will say, well, we need this many acres to sustain this many people in our family, right? So then we'll look at the land and say, okay, well, how are we going to do this? Which one of your family members want to work the land? It's husbandry, farming, right? So whoever wishes to take care of the land, they can get this area of land, and this is how we'll develop this part so as to bring it in harmony with that part over there. Right, so everybody gonna have to say, ain't gonna be no more bullying people off their land, because that's what happened with the Louisiana Purchase. Benjamin Banneker was the translator for Lewis and Clark, and they traveled across the land, and they the ones that claimed that we abandoned the land because the castles was empty. The castles was empty because we was all fighting Seminole Wars. So then they exercised squatter rights. Right? And then every time one of us said something, if we was too right, they murder us. Right? If they could give us the runaround with paperwork, with shuffling, like for instance, they told us our ancestors used to sign papers with an X. That's not true. They would put the X there and tell them to sign here. They still do it to this day. Sign here, X, and here, X. Right? And when we didn't sign, that's why they say these people that signed is the witness to this X.
Oh my goodness. Not to throw you off, when you said Wicks, that happens to be my last name, Wicks. Is there any meaning behind that? And I came across an old family photo. It's like 1930s. It might be a little older. And I'm pretty sure I'm gonna run into some type of wealth because it says the Wicks name was originally Wilkes, Wilks, but with the lettering they used back in the day, it looked like a C, so they changed the L to a C. So it has me thinking, if with that misplacement,
it's a tribe. I think it's called Wixom, Wixom, and Wicks is short for Wixom, which means the wise ones.
Holy shit, Lee. Okay.
Wicks is the same word that they use to translate as witch.
And to make it clear for people out there, witch wasn't really a bad word.
It just means wise woman.
Exactly.
And so if you was a wizard, you was a wise man.
That's powerful. I believe you was getting ready to say something else after Wicks before I interrupted you. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I was talking about the X, the people that signed behind the X, they called them witnesses.
Okay.
Right? But they was actually the contractors. The X's were telling them where to sign the paperwork. So imagine you brought a contract to me and you put an X there and say, you sign here. And I sign it and say that I'm the witness to your signature, your X. They call it making your mark. Right? The mark is not the signature. The signature is the one who actually signs in cursive his appellation, what we call it a name. But an appellation is the designation by which you go by. Right? It's just like my last name, Hayes, is a European counterpart, Hays, which was Irish who farmed hay. But it's also Haya, which is short for Hayoka. And this is what we would be chanting around the fire. Hey, hey, it's the same thing. But they gave it the European counterpart to undermine the origin of the name. So they want to take everything back to Europe. Right. And when they do that, the designation and status in law is called free white person. So if you go to blacks and you look up free white person, it's going to tell you they Moors and a couple more other European terms. So when they talk about the card, look on the back of the nationality card. It says citizen of the United States. So there's no real liberation in that, and other than for you to learn that these people are fraud.
Yeah.
Masquerading as our government, tying us up into a corporate paperwork shuffle between barristers. The barristers are your honorables and your esquires. Esquires are attorneys. Whether they prosecutor or defender, it don't matter. And your honorables are your judges. These titles of nobility that can be looked up. Right? So the Constitution prohibits titles of nobility, and we don't never question it. Right? Because they are exercising the law of the Levites, which can be found in Leviticus. The whole court system is described in Leviticus because that was the first contract, the 400-year contract that they acknowledged in 2019 to have expired. No, 2017, I think. They had a congressional hearing acknowledging the 400-year terms of the biblical contract. The Bible is a contract and a riddle. Right? It's a contract, it's a riddle, and it's scrambled. Everything is not in sequential order. Things been moved around, but if you don't know what it was in its original format, you don't know these things. So this is why Baba Malachi York translated all of their so-called religious texts himself, because he didn't trust the translations we was given, because he read the original languages and they didn't match up. So once he started translating those religious texts and started shining light on what's being said, he have to go according to the system. That's Chief Black Eagle. You know,
Black Eagle.
So they can say what they want to say, you know, but we have the first right and the first claim of right to the land. Those Indigenous Rights Act, once again, for those who just coming in, are their letter to us that if we step up, they'll leave. That's all it is. Right? It's not actionable law. It's educational law, informational law. Right? So actionable law would be, if you violate this right, there's going to be a legal consequence in the court of law. All of their courts is fraudulent. But we do have tribal courts that's been here the whole time. But we have
Sorry, where are the tribal courts located?
Open it up. Oh yeah, right on time.
Excuse me. And there's tribal courts in every state, as you would see like a regular courthouse?
Not in every state, but the land was divided up so that the tribes could set courts up. Most of them are on reservations, but the one that's actually totally autonomous is actually in Alaska. That's the equivalent of the tribal Supreme Court, right? And because we've been following somebody else's system, we don't even know our own.
For sure, for sure.
So this is what we're fighting against right now. We're not fighting our people. We fighting our people's miseducation, and we fighting the misleading of our people by a rogue faction of individuals masquerading as us, making deals with their brothers that ain't us. Right? So we got hit with the okie doke. Ain't no shame in being deceived, but there's a whole lot of shame is once you see the deception, you pretend to continuously be deceived. Right? So I'm not gonna pretend to be deceived.
At all.
Yeah. So Father's Day. I had to mention this because I'm excited. I finally got my hater corner up.
What you mean?
Look, if you don't have no opposition to what you're doing, no haters, then you ain't doing something right.
Thanks.
So I finally got my haters online. They really coming, and I'm so happy to see my haters.
I be seeing them. They be like, "Where the receipts at? Where the receipts at?"
They don't check them. they don't check my receipts go back for 3 years.
Man,
so
people
look,
rather.
It's just like this. When the guy get his doctorate degree, he write what he call a doctor thesis, a master thesis. Then he take his master thesis and he present it to the other professors. That's his superiors he's been studying under. And they're going to try to rip his master thesis apart, right? Once he stands his ground and he defend this thing and they pass him and he become what you call a PhD, right? PhD means philosophy doctor. That means that he had a philosophy, he wrote it down, backed it up with his references, and now he's classified as a PhD, a doctor of philosophy. Okay, now he becomes a university professor. He's teaching the class. He know this shit, right? But he don't bring references to every lecture. But everybody that want the references know what he's teaching is in his master thesis. So they go back and they study the master thesis. And if they find something that the professors overlook, they come present it as a question, right? So now he have to go back and get a new piece of supporting evidence in order to confirm what he said that was overlooked by the professor that this student discovered. That's when he go back and he bring back a new receipt. Otherwise, you go back and you check the old receipts, right? Because what it looked like for every time you come, like I could do book references for hours straight and tell you about books for hours straight without repeating the same book twice, right? But what good is that going to do? You don't even know why I'm giving you the reference. Now I'm telling you, and then I might say, make a statement, right? Well, if you want to know if their system failed, check the tour schedule for the White House. They're not going to go check. They're not going to call nobody in D.C., right? None of that. They just going to automatically say, I seen Joe Biden on TV. He made it up. He lying, right? But they never checked the tour schedule. They never knew about the Donald Trump bankruptcy. They never knew about the executive order to close the Federal Reserve because they don't read that documentation. That shit is tedious, dry read, boring as hell, and motherfuckers don't want to read that shit. And that's why I'm where I'm at now, because when that shit come out, I have to investigate it, right? So my haters, my hater group, I love them to death. They want to know, if I was 5 years old when Larry Hoover got locked up, why am I fighting for Larry Hoover? And my answer real simple, because it's right. I don't need no other reason. The fact that I'm right, and I know what happened with the COINTELPRO operation, and I know the path to redemption from under the legal fiction of this occupying government. Because I'm aware of this, I'm going to do what's right, and I don't give a fuck what they got to say about it, right? I ain't never made no secret about me doing 16 years in the penitentiary, But this is supposed to be some bombshell information that I did time, right? So they want to know how I'm cut. Tell them to pull my parole hearing, since they want to go digging into the background, and it's videotaped, right? The parole agent that I had to have a review with, his name was Atterbury, right? So when he did the interview, right, on the parole, I had to meet certain standards to get a parole. So I went in and I told them what I told them, and they gave me a parole. I did my 2 years of parole, and I got discharged from the case, right? So they looking at the discharge and the paperwork, never knowing that I got discharged from parole. That means I did my time, right? I sat my ass down on parole for 2 years, got discharged from parole, right? And the only thing else on my record is my motherfucking traffic history.
Mm.
Okay, so if all that shit make me a horrible person, cool, I'm good with it. But I'm still gonna do what's right, whether you like it or not. Right? So big ups to my haters. Keep on hating. Keep on hating. They need to go get some more hater help. They need to recruit some more. But I'm gonna tell y'all this. It ain't gonna be GDs come knocking at your door if you a Stone or a Vice Lord or a Crip or a Blood. It's gonna be your own knocking on your door telling you, leave that motherfucker alone. You know what he's doing? Get out the mix. You cause him. But as long as they